G'day everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Australian Property Investment Podcast. Thanks very much for tuning in each and every episode. We want to make sure that we're giving you awesome guests and incredible value for the exchange for your time that you're investing into yourself and your property journey as well. Today's guests are awesome. If you haven't heard of Auction Snitch, I'm going to tell you right now, you need to jump on this app and have a look. So I've had a look at it. We've had clients that have jumped on it as well, been featured on A Current Affair. That's when you know you've made it as well. And Tori and Tasmin, welcome to the show. How are you both doing?
Well, indeed. Thanks, Aaron.
Excellent. Look, I want to talk into your stories before we get into Auction Snitch, about a little bit about yourselves. IT professional, real estate. Tell us a little bit more about your personal, professional journey and how you've got here today.
All right. Well, I'll go way back. Born in South Africa.
Yeah.
Lived in the UK for a while. Moved to Australia.
Yeah.
Been in Sydney now since 2010. Met Tori around about then. We have kids at the same primary school. Yeah. And have been friends ever since. I've worked in IT pretty much my whole career as a project manager and program manager. So software development and infrastructure projects, which is why we always talk about what's the idea? What's the idea? What can we do? And landed on Auction Snitch.
Scratching the itch. What were the other ideas that were thrown around, do you think, in the lead up to this?
There were quite a few dating app ideas.
Oh, nice one.
But yeah, real estate is a passion for both of us.
Yeah.
So we've landed there, which is
very
exciting.
I often say to people, real estate and online dating have a lot in common, because these online profiles, like, that looks nothing like the photo.
You get Amen to that, brother.
You get that is nothing like what happens. And so I think that's a common one.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're judged primarily on the photo to start with. Is another similarity. Absolutely. Yeah. So many similarities. Yeah. And don't write off the older models either.
Never.
There we go.
And yourself, Tori, take us through your
Well, I am a real estate agent in Sydney, and I'm loving it. I'm a relative newcomer to the industry. This is my 5th year. Before that, I had a career in federal politics, and before that, I was in e-learning and worked for a major hospital in Sydney. I'm originally actually a high school teacher, having taught business studies and economics.
Wow.
My family were actually introduced pet insurance into Australia. My dad's a vet.
Wow.
So we have, as a family, enjoyed lots of different experiences looking at the pet insurance side of things, running a small business. I briefly produced the Today Show. The joke is that I've done a lot of different things, and I think all those different experiences have always built on the previous, and here I am today. Awesome journey
for both of you guys. Coming to Australia, was it a big change from South Africa for yourself?
Not so much from South Africa, but from the UK, definitely.
Okay.
I spent close to 10 years living in the UK, living and working in the UK in my younger years. Fabulous time of life, and obviously it's a hugely dynamic place to work, especially in IT.
Yeah.
So that was fabulous. Coming to Australia is coming to the lifestyle that I wanted. So, and my husband at the time was Australian, so he was moving home.
Oh, nice.
And settled in Sydney, and I wouldn't live anywhere else now.
Best city in the world. We pay a hefty price tag to call it home, but you can see why, isn't it? Anywhere in Australia, a privilege to call this country home. And I often say to people when they're talking about how expensive the market is, like, look what this country has to offer. And to be able to buy an investment property and buy more properties, and the banks enable that type of growth as well, we are very, very fortunate. We're very much part of the lucky few that get to call Australia home.
Agree. Yeah. I had that thought as I did the Dee-Why to Manly fun run with my daughter on the weekend. And just looking out onto that beautiful coastline at Curl. Just took my breath away, and I thought, wow, this is, you feel like you're in a movie half the time when you're driving around Sydney. It's so beautiful, the natural features and so on.
Mate, well said. I mean, getting here, I drove across the Harbour Bridge. We record this in North Sydney, and just to go across the Harbour Bridge in itself, something you just take for granted, but people come across the world to have this experience, and most people can do that daily if they really wanted to.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Excellent. We're talking all things auctions, and look, we bought our family home through auctions, so I can tell you the nerves leading up to that week. The world just stopped spinning. I couldn't wait for that time to roll around. But the home buying journey in itself, and I've had this conversation with numerous clients that are trying to buy a home, I really feel it holds up a mirror to your greatest insecurities. And what I mean by that is some people call it imposter syndrome, the inner voice, whatever it is. It's like, what happens if someone beats me? What happens if the market moves and I can't afford it? What happens if the agent sells it to someone else and I don't get a chance to buy it? What happens if the bank says no? What happens if I buy the wrong property and it's riddled with problems? What happens if rates go up and or what happens if we lose a job, for example? And that's what I mean by it just brings out these insecurities in people as well. And then the auction is just like the icing on the cake, which is it's completely out of your control in terms of how things are going to go down in the day. So, I mean, I'm going to turn to yourself because being a real estate professional, you're probably dealing with this type of sentiment on a consistent basis. Would that be fair?
Absolutely. And it's both for the buyers and the sellers.
Yeah, nice. Yeah.
And often the agent as well. Let's talk about buyers. Buyers are obviously doing a lot of background work. So it's a lot of time and often money to actually rock up to an auction on a Saturday usually.
Yeah.
You've spent money on legals, you've spent money on pest and build. You've lived in this alternative world where you've living in this house. You've already worked out where the furniture can go, where the kids will go to school, how you'll get to work. So there's a lot of emotional capital spent on a property. And if you're serious at buying this property at auction, so, if you aren't successful at the first auction, that's a big,
blow to your confidence.
It is a blow to your confidence, and it's a stress and a disappointment, and you have a letdown because, as you say, it is stressful. So you actually have a physiological response to what's happening. And likewise with the seller, you're thinking, does anyone like our property? Are we going to get the price that we want, the dream price that the agents, dangled in front of us?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of pressure and stress. And you don't know how it's all going to unfold. And it's very public disappointment or very public judgment, perhaps, if you've overpaid in some people's eyes.
Yeah.
So you are on display. And a lot of people are private. We are private people, I think, by nature. And we don't necessarily want the whole world knowing our business. And that's really the opposite of what's happening on an auction day.
It's a spectator sport for the entire local street to come out and watch as well. Right?
More popcorn required.
I think I was reading about it one auction up at Turramurra, and they said the amount of groundswell just from locals that were coming up to see this auction.
I'm calling it the modern day church service.
It's a local sport, people coming out and watching an auction. I mean, part of it is, I think people want to see what the result is, but also who the new neighbours are. And I think that's part of it. Like, you get a really strong, on our street when we bought, that's what it was. They just want to see who's the person that's going to move into this house and take over from the current owners and become one of us.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think there's a little bit of Mrs. Mangle in all of us.
Totally. You mentioned about the emotional journey. So take me through. I mean, you have a unique perspective where you're probably dealing with both sides of the fence, Tori, which is the seller, the buyer, for example, and then trying to get to a win-win. Win is what I call it. So a win for the buyer, a win for the seller, and a win for the agent as well, because they've got skin in the game. Absolutely.
So, and that's the way I like to operate. If everyone can kick a goal, so to speak, then I think that's been a good day. The vendors are anxious because they have their dream price, and I think the vendor is the person who, obviously, as the agent, we're wanting to represent. That's our job. That's who we're working for. They're paying our commission, and so we want to provide the best information, the best advice, and that's often difficult if perhaps things aren't going as well as we'd hoped.
Yeah.
Alternatively, if it's going really well, and that's a different story. But sometimes it doesn't go as well. The campaign can be difficult. People can drop out at the last minute, and so on, or people can make pre-auction offers that are well and truly below where you'd hope. So it is. It's sort of almost like you're being a coach in a sporting sense. You're providing them, your vendor, I should say, with the information that they need to basically make the best decision. So I always like to give our vendors throughout the whole campaign all the information that they need. Ultimately, it's their decision as to what the property's worth, how the campaign's tracking, who the buyers are. I'm always giving them, without breaching privacy, the best information about who our best buyer is. If a buyer is streets ahead of the rest of the pack, then obviously we'd like to close the deal before auction day, because you're going to then expose that buyer to an auction day crowd where they really only have to pay, $1 more than the rest of the pack, if you see what I'm getting at.
Yeah.
So there's just, we as agents, I guess that's our expertise in being able to see what's happening and how the auction day might play out, or whether we don't go to auction and so on. And it's really a question of educating and helping the buyer see in, what is a relatively short amount of time, let's say 4 to 6 weeks, what we have in our head that's, been built up over years.
Correct.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
I'm not sure if I've answered your question properly, but have you got anything to add there, Tamsin?
Nope.
No, I think you're right. It sits a little bit out of your locus control. There's some things that you can control, and there's you can coach buyers and get them active, but ultimately it's got to be the fit as well, for the right buyer, the right price, and the vendor accepting that as well. I guess that's where the auction fear comes into it. It's lacked transparency in the past, and we talk about great innovation is solving pain points, and this is where Auction Snitch does come into it. The transparency, when there's no price listed, for example, or there's a huge guide and it's selling for well and truly over that, and we see that time and time again. We'll call it the Sydney market because we know it so well. There's an auction guide we'll call it 1 to 1.1. And it's selling for auction at 1.5, 1.6, and people are scratching their head going, how did that even happen? It's not even remotely close to the price guide, for example. And we're in the ballpark for maybe 1, 2, but a couple of opening bids and they're blown out of the water. And we see that time and time again. Was that part of the research that came up when you were looking? Was there a research component that you had in the lead up to this?
That was hugely the motivation for it. Yes, we were watching the market for a while. And Tori will tell the story about how she asked me to go to a specific auction, and that was really where we crystallized the idea.
Yeah.
But we had been talking about the frustration of the lack of transparency in the market for months and months. We have friends in the market. Everybody does. Everybody in Australia talks about property prices, right?
There's not a week that doesn't get by. I think especially in the line of work that as soon as we say what we do, people are like, well, let me tell you about the property market.
That's right.
And it became more and more evident that there is this growing divide between the buyer's expectations and the seller's expectations. And the more we looked into it, the more we realized what was happening in the background but is not reported, is not really discussed. But anecdotally, we came across it in pretty much everyone we had the conversations with. Agents, there are a lot of good ones.
Yeah.
There are a lot of ones who will win at all costs. And so what's happening to agents who are behaving ethically is they're losing out on listings because other agents will go in and they will tell the vendor what the vendor wants to hear in terms of the value of their property. So they will set the vendor's expectations up here.
Yeah.
Then they'll have a little chat and say, in order to get that price, we need to market it here.
What's the saying? List it low,
Start low, watch it grow.
There we go.
Watch it grow, yeah. And so the buyer's expectations are here. The seller's expectations are here.
Yeah.
And then on auction day, you have a reserve price that's somewhere up here.
Yes.
But the buyers aren't completely unaware that that's where it's sitting. The underquoting rules should tackle that, but it is a very difficult thing to prove.
Yeah.
And so with all this frustration ongoing, and many of our friends missed out on properties because they, as Tori said, they'd spent the money, they were ready, made an offer, it was nowhere near the ballpark
Yes.
of the vendor's expectations. So when we talked about it, we said, well, what is going to fix this? Why are auction results being withheld? Auctions are public events, right? As you say, Turramurra and many of the auctions have been to huge spectator crowds.
Yeah.
Moves to sold on one of the real estate portals and it says price withheld.
Correct.
Contact agent, right? So if you're in the market at that point in time, your best information, your best reference point for doing your research as a buyer or a seller is what happened last weekend.
Correct.
Not what happened in 1988.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Last sold for.
Yeah.
Not helpful.
Yeah. And so we said, well, these, we need to talk about this. And then we started getting screenshots from friends, Facebook and Nextdoor and all those apps where everyone in the chat groups is saying, does anyone know what that house sold for? Does anyone know what that house sold for? We went, that's it. That is it. People talk about it. People know the answers. The neighbours all know what that house went for. And so if we can crowdsource that information and make it available, it is the hot off the press information that people who are active in the market need to be able to see. And that was sort of what pushed the idea on.
Well done.
And then, we worked out, how do we do this? Well, you can see a way. And so we put our money where our mouths are, basically, and went for it.
How good. I'm so excited. That's, again, where the idea comes from. It's like when you least expect it, sometimes the spark will hit, and then it's like, now we know it. Now we know what we need to do.
I've had 1,000 sparks, but they've all kind of fizzled. But, it's good to
get the creative juices going a little bit.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think to your point, Tamsin, which is what I say to a lot of people, I did a video about this recently, about the Australian property market. Is it unaffordable? Is it unattainable? Is it unachievable? Or is it underquoted? And I think it's probably the last one, because you talk about it's unaffordable. It is unaffordable if you're on a single income and you're trying to buy a standalone house in Sydney. It's straight up unaffordable. You need to buy something that you can afford, but it still means you can get into the market. Mm-hmm. Is it unattainable? No. People are buying properties day in, day out. It's probably a mindset thing that you've got at that stage as well. Is it what do we got? Is it unachievable? No. The Great Australian Dream is alive and well for a lot of people there as well. You need to find the right partners, the right team, the right tools, in this case, for example. But underquoting is definitely one part that you go, that's probably where people's frustration and then the tendency to maybe give up. And you may see this again in your real estate, which is after a while they've got pre-approved, they've pounded the pavement, they've missed out a few times, throw their hands up in the air going, now I'm going to cut my nose to spite my face. That's it, we're out of the market.
Oh, absolutely.
And that doesn't help anyone. The market rewards action takers and decision makers. This is a tool to help with decision making and action taking.
And there is absolutely no substitute for doing your own homework.
Yeah.
And that's how we see Auction Snitch fitting into the whole puzzle that you've identified, is that it's a great tool to do your homework. And it's amazing how quickly the layman or the average person on the street, I should say, layperson, is able to come up to speed in a very quick amount of time by doing some homework as to what properties are worth. What are the things to look out for? Does it have a north to rear aspect? Is it, on a corner block, or is it on a main road? Is it, square metres, internal space, and so on? These are all questions that really, if you're out of the market, you kind of forget or don't think about.
Totally.
But once you start actively buying, I'm amazed at how astute people really do become.
Yeah, I agree. Auction clearance rates are an interesting one. Is that something that you came across in some of your research as well? Because that information can be skewed to the positive and also to the negative as well. You're laughing, so I think you've got something here for us.
I think everything to do with the property market, the media has a field day with in Australia.
Well, I think when it becomes the first news story running on a Saturday night about the auction clearance rates or the property market, it's a real agenda on the media's. It gets eyeballs going, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And look, I think largely through our experience over the last couple of months of going to a lot of auctions, I can say that from my point of view, the clearance rates do reflect the trend that we see. So if you look beyond the overall figure, the top figure, that's the one that's reported, report on the number of properties sold at auction. The number of properties sold prior to auction is really interesting. And if you can look at that, you can see it's like, I can't wait. In this suburb, I cannot wait for that property to go to auction. I need to make my move. I need to make my decision. Or if the number of properties being sold prior is really low, you go, I'll take my chances, I go to auction. So that's a great indicator. But you've also got the passed in and the withdrawn.
Yeah.
So if you look at each element of the auction clearance rates, if you're of the mind to sit and watch how they're trending, all of those individual categories give you a lot of information about what is happening in an area. So is it perfect? Is it completely accurate? Probably not. It's only based on the auctions that are reported in by the agents, which is never all of them.
No.
That's correct. That's right.
I know I've been too busy to respond to a text message from both domain and real estate.
Yeah.
About what happened.
I mean, think about it Saturday when you're getting offers and you're trying to close out sales.
It's
or you
the
got
last
calls
thing on my mind.
Correct. It's not that an agent's trying to be cagey. It's going on a Saturday afternoon. Maybe you just don't have the time to get back to real estate or domain about the auctions today. I'll wait a little bit. But it's a lag. Now it's a lag metric, right, in terms of data, isn't it?
It is a lag metric,
Yeah, they're doing their best to get agents to respond. They're being very proactive. You share with me the texts and the emails that you get from both the portals to try and get the responses in on time. I do think it's a useful metric.
Yeah.
But view it knowing what it is.
That's it. I think when you take the metric and you lay it in with the other data that you've got passing, withdrawn, pre-auction sales, in the lead up to it, you were looking at one number, but there's so much more that goes in and around it as well. And so when people can come into an auction, be more open-minded. Okay, and these are the rules of the game. This is what I'm signing up myself up for as well. I think you can make peace with that a little bit more. And the other part that I tell a lot of our clients that are going to auction is flip it on its head and just think it's a transparent process. Which is, some people think they're making an offer to an agent, the agent passes this on, or they're going to shop this offer around, for example, versus I know the competition that I'm seeing. I can see my competition on the day, see how many people there, and who else is willing to bid and how hard they're willing to go. And if you never had it, you never had it. But also if you had a chance, it's like, hey, we missed out by this much, but at least we were in with a shot versus not knowing sometimes. And the other ones, which is those during COVID, people just like submit your offer by 5 p.m.
That's
on
right.
Friday and good luck. And you didn't know how much you ever paid for it at the time.
I know my parents bought their property like that.
Yeah, it's the worst style of auction compared to an open air and a bit more transparency in around it. So I think there's a way to go. Auctions are effectively a bit of a necessary evil sometimes, but if you can take it out and go, hey, look, it's a level playing field in the sense that we all get to see our competition, that's not a bad outcome as well.
And often I say, look, it's just a day where you just get together and you just put some offers in.
Yeah.
That's the very basic view of what an auction is.
Yeah.
And so if you can think of it like that, and just don't worry about the neighbours rocking up and and Channel 7 and all the rest of it.
And the coffee cart, the holes in that's there. And, exactly right. Let's go to Auction Snitch. So, I mean, if you're listening to this podcast, we do record, so you want to jump on YouTube or jump on our Spotify for video. But let's go through it. Let's have a look at under the hood of what happens and how people get involved as well, if that's all right.
We'd love to.
Yourself, Tasmin.
Yeah,
sure. Well, the way we came up with developing it was, we need listings. We need an app that shows people what is on the market. And so Auction Snitch is powered by Domain, so all the listings that are fed into Auction Snitch are those that are listed on the Domain portal, which is great. And it means that we have the ability to give, within the app, the ability you can link in and go and have a look at the full details of the property. But what we decided to do was create a user interface that was quick and easy to navigate and fun, hence the name. So we have play a bit of game with the idea, the thing, how do we engage people? And so we started with the idea of the Auction Snitch itself. At an auction, you can share with all your neighbours what the result was, and anyone else can have a look as well.
Yeah.
That very quickly evolved as we spoke to more people, into people saying, we need to know the price guide. We need to know what it's guiding, because so many listings just say contact agent, agent. So we added the price guide snitch and the sold price snitch for those properties that are not sold by auction. So we've got that range. And so what you can do when you open up the app is it automatically goes to whichever area you're in, assuming you've allowed your location settings to be used. Shows you, firstly, the live auctions for that week and auctions that happened in the last week in the first part of the app. You can then go into all the listings in the suburb that you're in, both selling and sold, or search by suburb or search by postcode.
Yeah.
Whilst you're in that searching mode, you can filter. So your standard, what you would expect to look for the criteria that you're looking for, a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom place, whatever.
Yeah.
And then you can just have a look to see what other users have contributed to the app. And it's nice, bright and bold. So you don't have to even click on the property. All the price guides are on the front list of the front listing. So all of the things that basically frustrated us, we tried to do the opposite in the user interface of the app. We have a sales campaign history feature that is part of the subscription model. And what the sales campaign history does is it captures everything to do with the listing. So from the date it was listed, if it was scheduled for auction, if the auction was postponed or cancelled or any of that, price guide snitches on the 1st of January versus the next price guide snitch on the 20th of January might be slightly different. So what we found that of particular value, because no one captures changes to the price guides.
Correct.
An auction,
In fact, as an agent, we actively expunge it.
Yeah.
So you can see that through the sales campaign history. You can see how long it was on the market, when it eventually sold, and what the sold price was. So we feel that that's really, really valuable information for someone who's active in the property market, buyers or sellers. Obviously, we also capture the name of the agency and the agent on that listing, which is also very telling for vendors if they are looking for someone who's performing really well in their suburb in terms of agencies. We're about to launch an additional feature, which will be a bit more of a dashboard, which has been asked for by a number of our users and was always our intention, but we started small.
Yeah.
And that dashboard will provide the stats that everybody's looking for when they do their research. Comparable houses, so I'll filter by my 3 bedrooms, 1 bathroom. I'll see what the properties were listing. I'll see what they eventually sold for. I'll see the difference between the guide price and the sold price, so that I can get a better sense of when an agent is telling me that's the guide price, it's likely to go for where. And at the end of the day, it's the sold prices that do dictate the value of the property that you're interested in. But understanding the strategies that are being used in the marketing campaigns is really valuable.
Which, when you're looking at a static sold price and it has the sold price, you haven't seen what's gone on the back end. You're usually too late to the party by that stage as well, isn't it?
Well, that's it. That's exactly right. So if you've just entered into the market, you don't necessarily know the backstory for a property. So it's very useful. And actually, as agents, we're getting a lot of agents using the property because all of a sudden, we're listing a property in a suburb that I haven't been tracking, maybe 1 or 2 suburbs away, but it's a good client. And, how do I quickly bone up on this particular area? There were a few sales nearby that are relevant, but I didn't happen to be tracking that.
Yeah.
I would like to have known what that property, when it was sold for $2 million, what were they guiding? Because this is all the education piece I was alluding to before when you're trying to help your vendor come up to speed with how it all works.
Yeah.
And so you're able to jump on and go, oh, wow, okay, well, that one was guiding 1.6 and they got a sale price of $2 million.
Yeah.
That's interesting. That helps us, gauge the market.
Excellent. I'll go back to the very start. We said, I need you to go to the auction for me. Can you be my snitch, right? That's kind of how the idea was born. As it's taken on life of its own, is the unintended consequence that it's kind of helped to have more conversations inside the real estate agency? Has that come up a little bit, do you think, Tori?
Oh, absolutely. So I've heard reports of someone yelling out across the office the other day, I love Snitch, which obviously filled me with great joy when I heard that reported.
Yeah.
So agents are using it. It's our business to know what things are selling for and what they're guiding. That's full stop. You're not doing a job if you're not across the competition.
Absolutely.
So this is just a wonderful tool. Look, I know, and perhaps I might have been guilty of this, of having a Gmail account that might not have reflected who I was. And
we'll put it down to market research.
Market research. And look, it's an accepted practice, and it really is a bit silly. We're all pinging each other, what's this one guiding, and we're all creating our own Excel spreadsheets of all this information. Well, this is just a better, quicker, more efficient way to get the information that you need, especially for whatever reason that you are putting up on the headline, contact agent for the price guide. So it's taking away that step, waiting for the agent to get back to you. If they might never, if they've worked out who you are.
Yeah.
Not without giving away too many of our secrets.
Absolutely. There's another one a little tip that we give to clients when they're trying to find sale prices, because when it says contact the agent on the sold tab, quite often people are a bit reluctant to. They want to bother the agent. The agent's not getting back to them. Sometimes they lose a bit of traction there. That strategy, which is to jump onto the Valuers General website as well. So if you're listening, we'll include the link as well. So you jump into the Valuer General's website. Has to have settled, and it can show you the recent sales there as well.
That's
so it's
correct,
a way that you can kind of populate, old listings where it doesn't say the sold price. Look, some people are private by nature; they want that information withheld, which I respect as well. But if you're trying to do your due diligence from a research and a sale perspective, this is definitely it's a great option, isn't it, for people?
Absolutely, and that's what we've said whenever we've been asked that question about privacy. One, the price becomes a matter of public record post-settlement, as you say. So anyone can have access to that information.
Yeah.
Two,
they just need to know where to find it.
They just need to know where to find it.
Auction Snitch.
They just need to know where to find it. That's exactly
our user interface is a lot easier than the Valuer
the
General.
Valuer General is
Just saying.
You tell it's a government website because you've got to click about 20 times to find the data.
Or Tamsin, who was our tech guru, was on it before, and yeah.
It's just frustrating. Anyway, moving on from that. But the other side of it is if, and this concern does come up, if it is a particularly private matter, the sale of that property, and there are issues around the privacy of that sale, no one is going to snitch the price on Auction Snitch because everyone who's involved in that transaction will be aware of the situation, right?
Yeah.
If the neighbours already know, if it's been at auction, a public auction is, you're choosing not to sell it privately. That information is fair game, we think. And to the point I made earlier, it's of value. What's happening in the market right now? What's happening in the market in the last 2 months? That information is not going to be on the Valuer General website.
Absolutely.
And let's face it, your individual desire for privacy is one thing, but we see ourselves as a social good. We're providing transparent market information for the benefit of everyone, and we think that surpasses your individual need, maybe not just to have that final figure that you've paid or sold for.
Much as one of our reviewers said, one of the things, it's like the stock market. It's in everybody's interest to know what things are worth.
Yeah.
It makes the market much more efficient. You talked earlier about the fear of overpaying for something.
Yeah.
Right? Whilst all of this information is not available, of course you have that fear. Once the information becomes available, you'll feel a lot more confident in your decisions because you have the benchmark prices of the neighbourhood. You say, right, I'm confident. This is the top figure that I'm going to bid. That's what I believe the property's worth. If I don't get it for that figure, I'm happy to walk away from it because I've done my research. Then somebody else is overpaying.
That's it. That's exactly it. Let someone else overpay. I get amazed. I mean, we get a lot of guests that come on, and I've seen prop tech and I've seen fintech, for example. Something like a mature profession and industry like real estate still continues to have innovation. Now look at this, just going. This is an evolution pretty much of like market conditions. Like 5-10 years ago, maybe it wasn't. We're still doing auctions, but they weren't the rule always. Whereas I feel like now we've moved to the rule, which is pretty much most of the properties do go to auction, and now this has had to keep up with the changes in this market condition. Then we get to this next level. This will become a norm. Like Auction Snitch will almost become a norm. People would go real estate domain, Auction Snitch, for example. Right, that's ideally what you're trying to build here, which is becomes people part of the home buying journey. Yep. And you just think like, what future innovation is around the corner when it comes to home buying? I've seen, now the buyer's agent proposition was purely around investment. Owner occupiers are now going down the path of, hey, look, the buyer's agent becomes part of our team as well. And it'll be interesting to watch this over the next few years, call it 5 to 10 years, what future innovation and developments there will be in this space as well, isn't it?
That's the wonderful thing about private enterprise and just the human spirit is that we are by nature creative and enterprising people, and I'm excited to see how it's going to evolve as well.
Absolutely.
And let's hope that Auction Snitch is up there with the top two.
Build it, and they'll come, and you've built it.
Well, that's actually what I said to Tamsin when we were working out whether we should put our money where our mouth is, as you said, Tamsin. And we have put our money where our mouth is, and it's been a significant amount of money.
I'm sure.
But
time, effort, and money, right?
And absolutely, absolutely.
But I did say to Tamsin, build it, and they will come, and sure enough, they are coming, and that's great.
Congratulations! I'm super proud. I love people that getting there, roll their sleeves up, and making a change, particularly for people at this point in their life where home buying can feel like a very stressful journey. We want to flip that on its head and going, if you're lucky, fortunate, and have the opportunity to buy real estate in this country, embrace it as like such a wonderful achievement that you can do that. In order to do that, though, and there's only one person that gets to buy that house, you've got to do whatever it takes to stack the odds in your favour. And this is Auction Snitch is stacking the odds in your favour. So well done, Tibo.
Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron.
Wish you both every success. If you want to check out Auction Snitch, we'll include all the details to the app, how to download it, how to access it, how to get involved as well if you are heading to auctions. And we know a number of our clients are heading to auction, and like I said, only one person can buy it. So there's often a raft of active bidders that do miss out as well. So if you want to get behind it and pay it forward by putting that price in there, we'll let you know how to do that.
Thank you. And it's free to download and free to snitch.
There we go. Free to snitch. I think that's the general rule in life, isn't it? We tell our daughter, no dobbing. But this one, we definitely will allow dobbing.
Yeah, that's right.
Cool. That's a wrap for another episode of the Australian Property Investment Podcast. If you've loved it, please leave us a review. Otherwise, please tell a friend, especially around this, if you know someone that's looking to buy at auction and is hitting a few walls. Let them know about this Auction Snitch tool and love to hear your feedback. Thanks very much.